Hey everyone, my name's Leanne. I am the face behind Small Gestures Vintage and Crafts. Welcome to my channel. First off, in last week's video, I told you I was right on the cusp of 5,000 subscribers, and oh my gosh, you guys, I woke up yesterday morning to over 5,000. I am beyond, I'm just blown away. I am so appreciative of your kindness, your feedback, your support week after week. I love what I'm doing, playing, creating, sharing those ideas and those creations with you guys. I hope I inspire you a little bit, give you some ideas, maybe give you some tips here and there. I'm having the best time, and I am so glad that you are along with me on this journey. So this week, it's only 3 projects this week. 2 of them were a little more intense than what I had anticipated, but I am completely in love with all 3 of the projects. So if you are ready, let's do it. Project number 1 this week is this beautiful wooden swan. I picked him up at a yard sale, and I loved him, fell in love with just the simplicity of it. It was just a little aged. I didn't like the faded or the yellow varnish and the cream color paint, so I gave him a good sanding, and he got 2 coats of shellac because I wanted to stop any potential bleed through. And now we're going to reattach his little neck. So I just put some wood glue down there and make sure his neck was centered on his body, and then clamp it and just wait for it to dry. I'm using Sweet Pickens milk paint for this little guy, and I don't have a lot of flour sack left, so I mixed it with just a little bit of truffle, and I also didn't want it the stark white. I felt like flour sack was going to give it, so I put a little bit of truffle in there, and then once I got it in there, I thought, oh, that's kind of dark. So I think I added a little bit more of the flour sack, but I love with milk paints, you can mix them like that. They're just powder paints, and then you mix equal parts water to the powder. So I think it was maybe 3 little scoops of water, and then mix it together really well. You can use just a spoon, a little whisk. I have this little frother guy here. Mix it together for a couple of minutes, and then just let it sit for about 10 minutes until it gets the consistency of a melted milkshake. So it's time to start painting. The first coat of milk paint always is a little scary looking. It looks really thin, and the coverage does not look the greatest, but it definitely gets better as you go along. So I just started coating this little guy up and hoping that I would get some crackle. So I think this is after the second, maybe the 3rd coat of paint. This is also milk paint in Lantern. I just am going in and painting this guy's little beak. This lantern color gives great coverage. I think I had to only go over this twice, and that was mainly because the white wasn't completely dried when I did the black, and so I ended up with a little bit of gray. So I like the coverage of the milk paint. I think this is probably after 4 coats, to be honest with you. And I've got, of course you can't see it on the white, I've got some great crackle, not a lot of chipping, but I want to go ahead and hit everything with that sanding sponge. If there's anything that's going to chip off, I would rather it do it now than later. down the road. So I'm just using the sanding sponge, and I think I actually went in with a little tougher grit sanding pad as well, in all different directions, just to encourage any chipping that I could get. And now I'm making eyes. So I have this old paintbrush that I've just sanded the bottom flat, and it's, I think, the perfect size. So I'm just going in with little black dress. I didn't want this to flake off, so we're just using DIY little black dress for his eyes. Milk paint does need to be sealed in, so my choice of sealer on this project is to go in with some clear wax. This is just Debbie's DIY clear wax, and then we are going to follow it up with some dark wax. This is where the magic happens. Look, I was so excited when I came in with the dark wax, because it really just, it soaks in and highlights all of those cracks in this paint, and I love how it looks. So I put the clear wax down and then the dark wax, and I still felt like it was a little dark in areas, so I opened back up the clear wax and kind of used it as an eraser. That's the great thing with wax. You can just come in with that clear wax and take off any of that extra dark wax, and it really lightens it up. And so that's what I did for the rest of this guy. I just went ahead and did the dark wax, and when I wiped it back, I just made sure I had a little bit of clear wax on my rag and brought it down, just deepened the color a little bit, not too much, I don't think, where it looks dirty, but just really highlighted all of the texture in that paint. When I'm using wax, I always like to use a clean rag to hold onto the piece, because you can leave fingerprints in the wax, and that is not something I want to have. So I'm just going around this whole little guy with the dark wax and then buffing it off again, like I said, with just a hint of clear wax, and it just, oh, I'm absolutely falling in love with this as I work on this little guy. I am super happy with how this little guy turned out, and I definitely think he's a much better fit for decor of today than when I originally got him. What do you think? So for my second project, I picked up this lamp at Goodwill. I think it was just over $4. It worked great. I had seen a picture of a lampshade that had transfers on it, and I loved how it looked. And so when I found this guy, I needed a lamp for a little corner in my bedroom, and I love the style of it. I just wanted something very simple, very basic. And so I found this. It took a lot longer to get it to the end result than what I anticipated, because of how colorful that fabric is. So this is fusion paint in cashmere, and it actually is probably like 2/3 water, 1/3 paint. I started with a really diluted mixture so it would really soak in to the fabric. I didn't want any of the paint cracking down the road. I've never done this before. I've never painted fabric like this before. So I just really wanted it to soak in to the fabric, and then with each progressive layer, I added a little more paint, a little less water. And then the base was in great shape. I'm just really scuff sanding it. It had one little mark on it, so I'm just scuff sanding it to rough it up a little bit to prepare it for paint. For the paint color, I'm doing a little mixing. I really wanted kind of a fresher green, and so I am mixing Conservatory by Fusion and then Farmhouse Green by Dixie Belle, a chalk paint. I really wanted something a little brighter than the greens that I had in my inventory. So I mixed these two together and it came out perfectly, exactly what I was going for. I ended up painting the base 3 times. The majority of the paint is chalk paint, so of course it was a little rougher texture and had more brush strokes. So I wanted to have enough paint on there when I sand it back and smooth it a little bit. I wouldn't distress it all the way back to the white of the original base color. After sanding, I wiped it down really well, and then I'm going in again with Debbie's DIY clear wax and wiping off the wax, and then again, of course, following it up with some dark wax just to get in those creases, the indentations of the lamp, and deepen that color just a little bit. You could certainly leave it here with just the clear wax. The clear wax gives it such a beautiful finish. You don't have to go in with the dark wax. It really just is personal preference. So I'm just using a fine grit sandpaper on this lampshade, just like wood or decoupage paper or rice paper. When you put water on it, the fibers expand and they rise a little bit. So I'm just hitting it with some fine sandpaper just to smooth it out a little bit and going in with another coat of paint. And oh, this was a great trick. I use this on my lampshades anyway. I wanted to make sure I had all of the little fuzzies and any stuff that I sanded off. So I'm just using a little lint roller, and I think this might have been my last coat. This was probably 4 or 5 coats, and each time I used a little less water, a little more paint. In this, I have a good bit of paint in the cap there, and I just dip it in a little bit of the water. So it's definitely more paint and less water by the time I am completely done. I just wanted to make sure that I wouldn't have any cracking of the paint. And you can kind of see on the inside of the shade there how the paint soaked into the water. So you've got paint on the inside of the shade. I don't think that's too big of a deal because you're not really going to be looking at it from the inside. But anyway, let's get to the transfer. So of course I had to go in with my favorite, Lost Garden. I think doing a project like this transfer is perfect because it is so easy to cut apart and piece together. And I just love the very kind of organic, flowy feel of this transfer on the lampshade. Applying transfers to fabric is really not a lot different from applying them to any other surface. I did make sure that my hand was on the bottom side, so I wasn't putting a lot of pressure on the fabric. I made sure that it was always supported, but it still released beautifully. Again, this is fusion paint, so it already has a top coat in there. There was no need to apply a top coat before applying the transfer. And transfers are a little sticky to begin with, and they have a little halo around them, which is a little edge around the color part of the transfer. And so when I was done, I really just pressed down, put the lampshade in between my hands and pressed down hard. It kind of removed that sticky, so to speak, so I could go back in and just burnish it with that top carrier sheet. I just continued to cut apart the transfers and just put them wherever I envisioned them, and used up lots of little scraps and just pieced things together until I had the final result that I was happy with. So I'd been doing a little bit of research as far as what top coat, because I've never really done transfers on a fabric like this. It's not going to get a lot of use, but I also want to protect it when you're dusting it and whatnot. So I think I'm going to come in with just some of Dixie Belle's flat clear coat, just to give an extra level of protection to these transfers and this sweet little lampshade. I will be doing something like this again. I love how it looks and how you can customize it to whatever decor you want. I may be picking a lampshade that's not so colorful next time, but I am so in love with this. What do you think? Okay, for my third and final project this week, I have this metal church / storage box. The bottom two tiers you could actually use as storage. And I picked it up at an auction, and my husband laughed and he's like, "Why did you get that?" And my only response was, "But look at that texture." So I knew I wanted to put milk paint on this, but one, I was scared that it was going to all chip off. I wanted crackle, but I didn't want it to chip off because it was a metal surface. So I was afraid of that. Plus, I am stingy with my milk paint too, and I knew it was going to take a lot of coats. So I came in with some Fusion DIY paint in cashmere. This is the same color I used on the lampshade in the previous project. So I just started with 2 coats of the Fusion paint, just so I would have better coverage when it came to the milk paint. So for the milk paint for this one, we're using from the Bespoke collection. This is Antique Ironstone. I have never used this before, and I thought I didn't have enough of flour sack, and I didn't want the same color anyway. I wanted something that had a little more depth to it. I did not realize, however, that this was almost identical to the base color that I'm working with. So when it comes to milk paint, I will say if you do not have extra bond, which helps control the chipping and the crackle, I believe that you can use an all-in-one paint underneath, because I had zero, zip, zilch, nada, nothing crackle or chipping until I used probably 5 coats of paint. My whole thought process was to use a color underneath so I wouldn't be using a lot of milk paint, because I like hoarding my milk paint. And it still took me, no, it didn't take me. I chose to use how many coats of paint just because I wanted that crackle. Milk paint is good for someone like me who tends to be a perfectionist. I like to control things. It's because you can't control milk paint, but let me tell you, I was going to control milk paint in this situation. I was going to get that cracking, and if I had to keep using layer after layer after layer of milk paint, then so be it. Then that's what I did. After my 5 coats of paint, do not laugh. After my 5 coats of paint, I came in with a finger sander and my sanding sponge, and I really just wanted to get down, especially in those grooves there where you could see where a little bit of the paint was puddled up, and get down to any chippiness. And again, I wanted to sand all of that off and expose any chipping that was going to happen early in the process. After I had sanded all the sides, then I did follow the same process as in Project 1. I went over everything with clear wax and then followed it up with dark wax. And when I buffed the dark wax off, I had a little bit of clear wax on my rag to help take it back just a little bit so it wouldn't be so dark. And the end result, I am totally happy that I stuck with it. I could have let it go and just embraced the non-crackle, but I'm kind of glad I kept pushing because I really love how it turned out. Thanks again for hanging out with me this week. I know there were only 3 projects as opposed to my usual 4, but 2 of them were much more labor intensive than what I had anticipated. So it is what it is. Thank you again for hanging out with me. If you like this video, please like, subscribe if you've not done so already. And if you know of someone that might like my content, I would so appreciate it if you share my channel with them. And I hope you enjoyed this week's projects. Let me know if you're going to tackle anything like this yourself, those lampshades. I don't know. It's amazing. Isn't it amazing once we start doing this, like how we look at things with a different eye? Like all I could see when I saw this church was, oh, look at that texture. It's going to be gorgeous. So thanks again for hanging out. Until next time, take care.